What are you doing with the Capital District Physicians Health Plan right now?
Well, I was approached about sitting on the board, and it's a very interesting board. It's a great group of doctors and people that aren't doctors, and we talk about healthcare, which is a big challenge across the country. And it's nice to sit down with people and really look at how do we make it accessible to everyone? How do we make it affordable? How are we competitive? And it's a tough job. It's a tough job because everybody's going in different directions, and we're doing a great job at CDPHP. People that are members there are very happy with it. People that work there, it's a great work environment, and I'm very proud to be sitting on the board there.
How do you think the transition to Obamacare is going in the nation?
Well, it depends on who you talk to, who in what part of the country they're from. Unfortunately, we can't have, everyone should have access to affordable health care, and there's nothing wrong with that. And one of the problems is I think that people are weighing it and looking at it in different directions. And, if someone goes to a hospital, they should be treated. If someone needs a doctor, we should be able to treat that person. And as far as I'm concerned, it brought a real attention to what do we have to do to really expedite it so that people do have health care, that there aren't people walking around uninsured in this country, and they have access to good health care.
For people not familiar with the Capital District Physicians Health Plan, would you elaborate on what their role is?
Yeah, they're one of the largest health insurers in New York, and
in New York State.
In New York State, and basically we provide, great care, and we have a lot of members. Almost 500,000 members, belong to CDPHP. And what we do is we break barriers down. We work with hospitals, we work with doctors and groups, and we make sure that all of the people that have CDPHP can access good health care, and that's what it's all about.
One of the big things about medical care right now is medical marijuana. What do you think about the fact, it puzzles me, we already have a distribution system in place with pharmacies. Why do we have to have a special place for distribution of marijuana in New York State, where other states, they just use the pharmacies?
Well, it's funny, Joe, because I was a consultant for one of the applicants this year that applied, and they were from Connecticut, and they are a very reputable outfit, and I learned more about medical marijuana and the use and the necessity for it in our society. One of the problems is the federal government is kind of hands-off, and they're letting states do what they have to do individually. And I've been saying all along, there should be one set of federal guidelines for this. There should, when young people have convulsions, kids, and seizures, and you can treat them with a medical marijuana, like a derivative on oil or something, why shouldn't that be available? Someone needs it if they're suffering from cancer or some very debilitating disease. Why shouldn't we have those pills available? And right now, and the funny story, one of the biggest problems they have in Colorado and California is what do they do with the cash that they're taking in these dispensaries? Right. Because the federal banks can't take it because it's not recognized in Washington. And as far as I'm concerned, there has to be a movement to really have one research center, one set of rules and regulations for all the states, and one really agency overseeing all medical marijuana distribution in the country. I don't have any problem with that, and I think it's something that the feds should really look at and get done, because there are all kinds of problems with states where it's legal marijuana use, and
right.
With it being transported to other states and being sold as illegally and that type of thing. So my feeling is, Joe, there's a lot of work that has to be done, but the federal government's got to step in and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. Put the ground rules down.
From your observations right now, which do you think works better, having a medical marijuana facility, or some other states just use pharmacies? Which do you think is better, or is it too soon to tell?
Well, you know what, it's probably too soon to tell. That's why there has to be one set of guidelines here, Joe. You can't leave this wide open the way it is and let each state do their own thing. And, we have dispensaries here and dispensaries there. My feeling is you have to look at it from a healthcare perspective, from healthcare providers. Should they be paying insurance cover medical marijuana? Should doctors be allowed to use certain types of medical marijuana in our states for those that are really needed? And as far as I'm concerned, yes. But there's got to be one set of rules and regulations. You can't let each state do their own thing.
Yeah, I've heard about Colorado where there's a lot of stuffed mattresses because they can't put the money in banks.
Well, it's funny because a friend of mine has a daughter that runs a dispensary, and her toughest job is hiring armed guards to watch the cash, to protect the cash that they have. And I'm sure that's in California and other states as well. And there's no reason that the federal banks shouldn't be able to take this in, or put it into an account. They're going to make money off of it, so why not? And it's really kind of ridiculous. It really is.
Education has always been something very important to Mayor Jennings. And you were a school teacher, school principal, And you have thoughts on the education system in 2015. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, you know, Joe, I was vice principal, and you probably met many of them in your years in school. We both did. And usually if you came to my office, it wasn't how good your grades were. And, you know, I was hearing through the kids about things they were worried about in the community, and that really prompted me to run for mayor. And then when I ran for mayor, I said, boy, now what do I do? You know, and being from the streets myself, it helped a lot, because our kids need good role models. They need good educational systems. You know, and you can sit back and say, oh, the teachers aren't doing this, the readings. It's not teachers, it's everyone together. We got to stop reacting and be proactive. Don't react when there's a crime in the city that involves kids. Get out beforehand and get into the heads of these kids and tell them, look, there is a way out. And that's what I used to say to them. You want to be very successful, you're going to get an education. That's what my mom taught myself and my brother and my sister. And I tried to tell every kid that ever came into my office, I want you to be successful. Here's how you're going to do it. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, there's a lot of this going into this testing. And, well, you know, by the time these kids are getting into high school, they're way behind in many of our cities and many of our communities. And we know that. So let's change the rules. Let's build a new game plan, urban, suburban, and rural. You don't need the same rules for when you have different challenges in different communities. And as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't all fall on the teacher's back. You know, the teaching to tests and all that. I mean, it's too bad, because they're playing catch-up ball in many instances with these kids. And to be fair, we really need a new set of rules and regulations when it comes to what do we expect? Well, how are we going to turn our cities around? How are we going to give our kids a better chance, especially the kids that are failing? And we know who they are. We know what the problems are. Okay, deal with the problems. And it's not just about money. It's about putting a plan together, a very effective plan that will impact everyone. And you have to start when these kids are 3 and 4 and 5. Now, when they're 16, 17, and, you know, alternative ed and things like that, it's not going to work.
I seriously have always felt that the teaching profession has been one of the most underappreciated in our nation. We've all had teachers that have had a positive impact on our lives, but now it's not only being underappreciated, but it seems they're under attack, at least here in New York State.
Well, it's across the country, I think, Joe. And, you know, I used to sit with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and we'd sit there and talk about urban education, and we'd talk with the state, you know, the federal education department, you know, and say, look, how do we, you know, you just keep throwing money at us, but there's no rules and regs on, you know, do we need longer school years? Yes. Do we need longer school days? Yes. Should we compensate teachers more? It's a very important job. As far as I'm concerned, yes, but there's not a lot of people that are in the trenches having a say about what they have to do. You know, and standardized tests are great, but we know where kids are going to fail. We know so why not take the time we're preparing these kids for these tests and change the curriculum, give them more reading, writing, math, the basics. Let's get them ready for later on in their lives. And, you know, it's not an easy solution. And, you know, people say, oh, you can't blame the teachers, you got to blame the parents. Everyone wants to blame people instead of putting together a comprehensive plan. As far as I'm concerned, the state education department should have a comprehensive plan to revitalize urban education. It's their job. They're in charge of education. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to spend these billions of dollars. And this is how it's going to work.
What do you think of Common Core and parents and kids are opting out of participating in the Common Core program?
Yeah, you know, it's just another hurdle that we're having, Joe. You know, it's just if people are saying, you know, why should my kid have to take a test or whatever? Tests never scared us. Well, they did, but, you know, yes. We tried our best, but we anticipated them, and you didn't blame the teacher if you were blamed because you weren't prepared. You didn't prepare yourself. And as far as I'm concerned, you know, we get hung up with a lot of tests and evaluations and things like that, and there's got to be a little change here, Joe. There's got to be a change, especially when you look at urban education, suburban, and rural. Different demands in each one of those areas for our teachers. And as far as I'm concerned, you know, a lot of it has to do with discipline. A lot of it has to do with, you know, family breakdown. But we know it. Okay, how are we going to deal with it? We're going to get the kids in school early. Get them in at 3 and 4 and 5. Prepare them.
When I was a student, if Sister Elaine called the house, she would frequently and spoke with my parents.
About how good your grades were, right, Joe?
My parents would say, hey, shape up. It seems now that when the teacher calls the parents feel it's the teacher's fault all the time and that they have a perfect child. That's my perception.
Well, you know, that's not really true. And
okay.
That's what's getting the play out there. There are a lot of parents that are looking for solutions. You know, like when I took over as mayor, I was picking up kids on the street and driving them to Albany High and to Hackett. And my lawyer said to me, "You can't do that. You can't." I said, "They belong in school." I said, "I'm a certified superintendent, teacher." I said, "Tell me why. Why shouldn't we be doing that?" And that's why I put together a truancy program to find out not why kids weren't in school, but where they lived. Did they have, parents in their lives? Were the parents doing what they were expected to do? That's where we should be looking at this to help break down a lot of the problems that we're having, because test scores are not the true indicator of solution for all the problems. They're not.
Another problem that we seem to be having in New York State and the capital region, whether it be Pittsfield, Schenectady, Troy, Albany, we have a lot of shootings and a lot of crime. We just had 2 Troy police officers shot. What is going on in the country right now?
Yeah, that's a good question, Joe, and it's kind of upsetting to watch the news and see everything that's going on. And, we have to get together once again. It's not about resources. There's plenty of resources out there. It's about communication. It's about making sure. And we give these kids hope. They're not going to carry a gun, or they'll want to get out. And we have to break that down. It's going to take a while to do it, but everyone's got to be on the same page. I'm talking about, churches, schools, even businesses. You have to involve everyone in this process, and you can't say, okay, it's your problem because you're in school. Now, kids are in school 180 days a year. That means they got 180 days or more that there's no schedule maybe in their lives. And as far as I'm concerned, I'd increase the school year to 220, 225, especially in cities and urban areas, to make sure that these kids are getting what they need. Yes, it'll cost you more, but in the long run, it'll be better for everyone. And I don't think many teachers would object to that, because they'd receive appropriate compensation. And then we know where the kids are, we know what's going on, and you need a new game plan. You really do. It's not going to change the way it's going right now.
Well, as you know, we transferred from Bishop Howard Hubbard to Bishop Scharfenberger. How is the Catholic school system doing in the capital region under our new bishop?
Well, I like Bishop's a nice guy. He seems like he's down to earth. You can talk very candidly with him. And I talked about the closing of Bishop McGinn, our Cardinal McCluskey. We talked about that. I'm on a committee to look at it. But the Catholic schools that are open in our city are full. And if you remember, when we were kids, 50% of the kids, I think, went to Catholic schools. Right. We did after my parents separated, but, sure. And it was good for us. It was good, but they don't have the clergy they once had. They don't have the nuns and the priests and everything else. And as far as I know, it's they're doing pretty well, and he wants it to go. He wants it to be available to people, and it really has to be part of our city or any city.
Gaming in New York State, your thoughts on that in 2015? That's a big issue.
Yeah, I think we have too many casinos. Okay. I think that, we really should look at, what is it doing for us? Is it benefiting public education? Because how is the money being spent when it's being sent to the state education or to the schools? Gaming is something that, you have your Native American casinos, and you have one going in Schenectady, you have one going south of us. I'm not sure there's that concentration of people, because other states are doing the same thing. You have Massachusetts building a major one, I think in Pittsfield. At Springfield. That's an $850 million casino going up over there. You see what's happened in New Jersey, Atlantic City, a lot of them are closing. Even Vegas is not busy. The busiest, my understanding, one of the busiest, it's not a casino, it's a racino kind of, is the one in down by Aqueduct in New York City. Per game or per machine, how much they do a day, twice as much as any of the other ones. Now, this Saratoga Racino does very well. I mean, there's a lot of people that go there, but I think if you have them, so close together, the competition's going to be there, and what can people really afford to go to them? Number one. Number two, are there enough people to support them? And I'm a believer there aren't.